Hey, it's David Weiner, the director of In Search of Darkness and In Search of Darkness Part 2. You are listening to The Graveyard Show.
Welcome to The Graveyard.
And welcome to another edition of the Graveyard Show podcast. I am your caretaker, and the graveyard is open. Well, as you heard at the top of the show, longtime friend of the program and filmmaker David Weiner will be here in just a moment to talk about his latest addition to the In Search of Darkness series as we go back to the 1970s. Just got done seeing a movie that I've really been wanting to see for quite a while. It's actually a documentary. It's called Lynch Oz, and it's a documentary about how the movie Wizard of Oz was so influential on David Lynch and his work, and it gets into a lot of interesting information regarding different scenes and sequences and names he's used in all of his different films and TV shows. And if you're a fan of David Lynch, I highly recommend it. You should definitely see it, especially if you're a super fan and you haven't heard about the movie. It came out a few years ago, and it's really, really well done. It's about an hour, 45 minutes. Now, if you're not familiar with David Lynch's work, or if you want to see any of his films or TV shows, you may want to avoid it for now because they do go into some spoilers, I guess you'd call them, for Twin Peaks. It goes into a lot of Wild at Heart, gets into Mulholland Drive, and Blue Velvet as well. So you may just want to be careful if you want to see any of those. You may want to wait to watch the documentary, but highly recommend it. If you find it, check it out. Let me know what you think. But right now, it's time to go back to the decade of disco, because as you hear in the background, well, we're welcoming a friend of the program back here inside the graveyard. And when that happens, it means it's time for me to get to work. Joining me now is a longtime friend of the program, who is the writer and director of such super documentaries as In Search of Darkness, Parts 1, 2, and 3, In Search for Tomorrow, and In Search of Darkness 1990 to 94 and 95 to 99. His latest film in the In Search of Darkness franchise, In Search of Darkness 70s, takes us back to, well, the 70s, the decade of disco. And as always, it is a great pleasure to welcome back to the program David Weiner. David, welcome back.
Get out. Oh, sorry about that. I'm calling from the Amityville house. I should have... God, hey. So, God, all these flies all over me. God, every time I go to that one room. All right, I'm out.
Run while you can. Well, it's great to have you here. I'm glad you're safe and sound now in the Amityville house. So let's just talk about the decade itself. When I say 1970s, what comes to mind for you?
My childhood. I was born in 1968, so I was a 70s kid, an 80s teen, and then my entertainment career, my career in the film industry began in the 90s. It's very even in terms of the way I can divide these decades. And so the 70s for me is an incredibly formative decade of TV watching on the big screen as well. Lots of monster movies, creature features. Evolution to actually calling it horror really wasn't until at the very end of the decade, with movies like Halloween and Amityville Horror. But I was a kid who watched everything from Hammer Universal Horror and Godzilla movies and King Kong movies to all sorts of network debuts of things like The Exorcist, The Omen, Amityville Horror, like I mentioned. These were movies that were totally on my radar that I saw completely too early in my existence and made an incredible mark, an indelible mark on my brain.
I feel the same way. It's one of those things that when I go onto YouTube and I see the NBC open for Halloween when it was premiering on TV and watching that and being like, oh yeah, I remember that. And then even watching Salem's Lot. I've mentioned this on my program before, where the 2-night Salem's Lot miniseries, as they were called back then, and how my friend, when he went across the street back home, ran as fast as he could after that first night because it was so scary.
Oh my God! Yeah, well, Danny Glick's gonna get you.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
And like you, seeing movies far too young, like Alien in the movie theater. I still don't know why my parents took me to see it when I was 9 or 8 probably at the time. And I was like, oh my God, but this is stuff that sticks with us, and it either repels you from it or it brings you closer to it. And for us, it definitely brought us closer to it.
Absolutely. I mean, some of my favorite stories, I mean, I saw that Halloween debut. That was in 81 or 82.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
But yeah, it was the early 80s when it came to network TV. But I remember Jaws and Halloween and these movies being in the theater, and I was too young, yet I still begged my parents if I could see them. And so for Jaws, my parents said, no, you'll never swim again. It's not going to happen. Here's a rubber shark. That should make you happy. But when Jaws 2 came out, I was 10, and I was old enough to see it in the theater. My parents allowed me to see it. And here's the great irony is I saw it on Martha's Vineyard, of all places, where it was filmed, where part of it was filmed. But, it takes place on Amity, but you know what I mean. But I have to say another part as well with Alien. I was obsessed with Alien. I had I still do. I have the Kenner oversized Alien figure before they yanked it, before all the moms got upset. But here's the thing. I had the tie-in novel. They didn't call it a photo novel, but it was a large version that was like a photo novel.
Oh, yep.
And I had the heavy metal comic book version, the graphic novel version of it.
Wow.
And I had the making of Alien. I had every single book that I could find on Alien. I knew all about it. I'm not going to make this a long story, but it's a pivotal one because I begged my mom to see it. And it was playing at the one theater that was left where all movies go to die, the 99-cent theater that I saw so many movies at. But once it hit the 99-cent theater, it was only there for a week and then it would be gone. And I begged and begged and begged. And Mom said, you will have nightmares. So the moral of the story, even though I said, I know everything about it, I won't be scared. Look, here in the book, this is as gross as it gets. No, you can't go. So it comes and goes in this theater, okay? A week later, guess what? My dad says, so did you want to see that Alien movie? And I'm like, it's gone. It's no longer playing. But the movie that was playing at that theater that following week was John Badham's Dracula. And that was the first rated R movie that I was allowed to go. My dad took me. It was a bonding experience. I thought it was amazing. Yeah. And even though it was a consolation prize, it remains one of my all-time favorite movies to this day based on the experience surrounding it. And anyway, I will just say that all In Search of Darkness is about the movies that we loved, the movies that we saw, but it's really about who we were with, what we were like at the time, our mindset, the pop culture zeitgeist. It's all what we bring to the table when we look at a movie and a movie title.
So true. I remember, by the way, that Badham's Dracula is probably one of the more underrated of the movies. I mean, it's so well done, and it's phenomenal. It's
really good.
It really is. And it's scary, and it has a bit of romance, but depending on which version, color tone too, you have where everyone is very pale, and then you have the warmer version as well.
Yes, that's a whole other can of worms there. It's the color timing in the movie is very strange because Adam wanted a black and white movie and Universal didn't, and so the happy medium is really sort of more just inconsistent. It's kind of a weird one.
I've never seen an actor eat more than Donald Pleasance in that movie. It was just crazy. I mean, dude's just stuffing his face the entire time.
Well, listen, he didn't have popcorn because he was in the movie. So.
Exactly. Well, it's funny too because when you talk about Jaws 2, my first thought is when I got to see that as well in the theaters because I was too young for Jaws. The popcorn tub it was a Jaws 2 branded tub of popcorn that you would get, and I wish I still had that. It was very
really. It was.
Yeah,
it was.
We had that.
Wow.
Yeah. It was. It had the poster or the shark going up out of the water with the water skier. Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yes.
I didn't know they. I mean, that's part and parcel for movies today, especially the most recent War of the Ultimate. Bucket. But it all started with Dune, and then it was just like all gloves were off for this battle, which we all win because now we all have spent $50 to $75 per popcorn bucket lining our shelves because they're awesome.
Right.
In fact, I actually thought that I tried to be restrained, but I had to get the Jaws Chum bucket that they made for the 50th anniversary of Jaws.
Oh, nice.
But I digress.
Oh, that is so awesome.
Can I say something though?
Of course.
I have to say, because we can get really caught up in memory lane.
Yes.
Memory lane, and I'm happy to do that because that's my happy place. It really is. But what I've discovered, because we're 70s, is we're going back to the 70s. We did the 80s. We did 3 long-form documentaries about the 80s. We did 2 for the 90s, where it was part 1 and part 2, first half and second half of the decade. We decided we'd go back to the full decade per darkness formula that people really love. And so here's the thing. I grew up in this era. I've seen so many movies from the 70s. I thought I had seen it almost all. But I'm discovering that there's so much more that never really was on my radar, because my world was whatever was ending up on TV, because it was a world before VHS. So during the 70s, when a lot of these sort of, alt hammer titles and amicus titles and a lot of these real sort of low budget movies that were grindhouse movies or drive-in movies, they never crossed my path. And so there's just an avalanche of titles. And so I've been going through doing my research, which is the greatest research in the world, to determine what's going to be ending up in Search of Darkness. And there's just it's overwhelming in the best way possible. I'm like, gosh, I'd never seen this one. But wait, Joan Collins did this also? I didn't even realize she did so many horror movies before Dynasty. That kind of stuff is really, really fun.
Well, that's what I was going to say about horror of the 1970s, because it might be the most eclectic out of all the decades. You have like the spillover folk horror from the 60s. You have established horror from the studio system. You have indie horror, which is now starting to really kind of pick up and gain steam. Then you have this newer, more violent and bloody movie that's coming out as we get later and later into the decade. And then and then you have some of these movies that are a little too close to reality when it comes to violence and actual horror. And then you also have the beginnings of the Stephen King adaptations that are about to blow up in the 80s. So you really do have a lot to chew on when looking at this decade.
A massive amount to chew on. You hit the nail on the head. Those are so many of the things that happened. And what is notable is the Hays production code, and that's something that people can look up if they don't know what it is. But ultimately, the censorship changed and sort of went away, and the motion picture ratings board sort of came in, and it was much looser and designed to not be full-on censorship. So, anti-heroes could lose. Sex could be much more graphic. The rape revenge subgenre really kind of took off because of this era. Hammer horror was getting actual nudity rather than heaving bosoms, because they wanted to try and compete with what's going on. People were watching movies like Deep Throat and Behind the Green Door at the local cinema because it was trendy and chic to have a spicy night out with your suburban couples going.
Yeah. And
no one batted an eyelash. They're like, "Ooh, this is racy. I want to check this out." But we have a key party. Well, we can go to that next week. It was like that, and so the horror movies, there was no cap on it anymore, and so they could get more violent, more bloody, much more realistic, and that did give way to not only a tremendous amount of sexy lesbian vampire movies and so on. You had things like Exorcist from a mainstream studio. You had Texas Chainsaw Massacre, an indie surprise that radically changed what people thought they could do themselves. And it's amazing that coming off of those, just even those two titles, which are sort of the opposite ends of the spectrum in 73 and 74, where you have a studio title and an indie title, the thing is the gloves were off, and this new Hollywood of burgeoning filmmakers with last names like Cronenberg and De Palma and even Spielberg, these guys were looking at their opportunities, and they're just like, wait a minute, I could do this, I could do that, I will do this, and I will do that, and I will make it tremendously cinematic at the same time. And audiences were lining up in droves to do these things.
Yeah, and that's one of the many interesting things of the 1970s, is that you're starting to see the established Hollywood system starting to pass the torch or go away, as we have the newer, the younger, the hipper filmmakers and actors and actresses coming up. I mean, just thinking about the amount of filmmakers during the 1970s that were either working going into the decade or beginning, and then all of them blowing up in the 80s. As you mentioned, Spielberg, Craven, Carpenter, De Palma, Argento, Lynch, as you mentioned, Cronenberg, Hooper,
Romero, Argento, Fulci, go on and on and on. And even Larry Cohen.
Yeah. I mean, it's incredible to think that lineup, what they would do in the 1980s. It's insane.
It's an amazing time. These are the formative years where they were really getting to sort of cut their teeth on different ideas, and really set the stage for their later work, but also just their work in the 70s collectively was just amazing as well. This was also at the time, unbeknownst to them, essentially the rise of the slasher. Bob Clark's Black Christmas, right up to John Carpenter's Halloween. But in between, there's all these other stuff, all this giallo that was happening, where all of a sudden the Western, American directors are looking at, well, what are these Italians doing? This is insane. You could do that. Incredibly visually stylistic whodunits with incredibly that are incredibly bloody as well. Yeah. How cool is that? It doesn't just have to be Scooby-Doo.
It's true. When I was prepping for this, I was thinking about like the path that Creator VC took with this In Search of Darkness series. So you started with the 80s, you did the 3 films about the 1980s, which, looking back now, I'm looking at and I'm thinking, well, the 80s is probably the most influential decade in horror. And then you moved from the 80s and then you just did the 2 parts for the 1990s, which certainly left their mark, or those films certainly left its mark on the genre. Now we're going back to the 70s, and I'm thinking about it, and I'm like, the 70s, if you were to put a top 10 list, greatest horror movies of all time, you could arguably, and I say arguably, but you could make a really solid list. You could fill that top 10 list up with all movies from the 1970s. Would you say that the 1970s is the greatest decade for horror?
Well, listen, that's like, out of all my children, who is your favorite?
Who is your favorite?
It was undoubtedly a golden decade. Like, I don't think that's a label that is just cliche or like calling a random person a genius because they're a really good artist, Yep. This era really was a golden decade for horror because it really was transformative. It really was influential. It really changed the way horror down the line in the subsequent decades was constantly drawing inspiration from and trying to emulate so many of these movies in that top 10. But I put a top 30 together just to see what people thought the top 30 might be. Mm-hmm. And every single one you and I and the average person has heard of every single one of these titles.
Yep. So
that should speak volumes in and of itself.
I can't wait to see the movies that you found that you didn't know about, and because I know if you didn't know about them, I definitely didn't know about them. How deep of a dive have you gone? Like, how is it when you're putting your films together? I mean, you don't have to tell us how the entire sausage is made, but like, how do you begin your research when you start doing this?
Well, I kind of did a sort of a roulette, really starting out, because I had seen so many, and then I started realizing that there were so many that I just had never seen or heard of. And I just thought, how amazing is this? Because I didn't like put on a random, I played Spin the Tubi, and you type in 70s horror, and I'd find a title that I'd never heard of. And sometimes I realize, well, wait, I actually have heard of this and I have seen it, but it's an alternate title I didn't know was the case. But there are plenty of things there that I just had not seen. I've never claimed to be like the be-all and end-all of knowledge. One of the great things about being able to make these documentaries is I'm always learning, and I'm always learning from the audience what people love, want to see, want to know about, and champion. Mm-hmm. And so between that and Spin the Tubi, I would just like, I mentioned earlier like Joan Collins,
Yeah.
I'd put on a random movie. I'm like, oh, Joan Collins is in this. Oh, okay. Oh, wow. She's playing a nightclub dancer, haunted by. Her baby is possessed, and it's all because of a little person. It's like, no, okay, I'm hooked. I'm hooked with this idea. Let's see where it goes.
Yeah.
It's funny, it's ridiculous, it's out of control, and it's not bad. It's perfect.
Yeah.
And I just think, oh, now I'm in trouble because there's so much good stuff here. I'm already overstuffed.
Yeah.
Have you ever had Mongolian barbecue?
Yes.
Yeah. Mongolian barbecue, for those, the uninitiated, Mongolian barbecue is, you have all this amazing vegetables and toppings and amazing things, and they give you a pretty minute bowl because they want to control your portions. So what you end up doing is you fill the bowl, and then what they do is they put those noodles on top of it, and then they cook it in front of you. But the thing is, the more you want to put in, the more you begin having to sort of mash down this bowl of food in order to keep it from all spilling out all over the floor. And it's an embarrassment. You feel like you're greedy, but that's the way. And so, like, this is the Mongolian barbecue of choices because it all looks so good to me. I want to put so much of that in this documentary, but
sure.
I know we're already overstuffed. And when I see yet another title, and I'm just like, holy crap, where'd this come out of left field? I'm like, okay, now I got to find a place for it.
Yeah. It's kind of like my queue lists on all the streamers. It's just like, how many movies do I have on hold right now? Like, I think Tubi sent me a email one time. They're like, hey, just reminding you that your 300 movies are still sitting in your save.
Right?
And I'm like, how did I just pick 300 movies? I wasn't even trying. And I'm like, well, all right, there you go.
It's good though because you know how it is for all of us with streaming is you're like, I want to watch something, I don't know what I want to watch.
Yeah.
At least you can go to your saved title of cache of 300 titles.
Yeah. And
at least you're not searching. You're just sifting through what you've already earmarked for later for yourself.
Yes.
And, that's kind of how I go about it.
It's interesting too because with the 70s, I think more so. Well, the 80s definitely, but like the 70s was sort of like the beginning of the age of home cable, pre-satellite. Later in the decade, I think we start seeing some home video in terms of VHS. But as a kid, I remember being so young that my friends who were my neighbors, they were a couple years older than me. And I remember when they had cable TV, they would watch like Piranha, or they would watch Friday the 13th. And then during the summertime, like we would sit on the stairs and they would tell me the story. Like they would just tell me the movie. They'd be like, and they would give me beat by beat by beat. And it was so much fun because, here I am, this young kid, imagining what this movie looked like. And then when I was finally able to see it, it was like, wow, this is great stuff. Another thing that stuck with me, and I'm wondering if it stuck with you, was the age of what we would call TV spots or commercials, and the effect that they would have on us as kids, because as latchkey kids, we'd come home most of the time, probably home alone, coming back from school, our parents are working, and then you turn on the TV, you have the movie, a 4:30 movie or something on, or whatever you're watching, and all of a sudden this commercial comes on for like Magic or or Jaws or something. You're like, and now you're in the creepy home by yourself, going, oh my God, when is everybody coming home?
Well, these were they were engineered for maximum fear for whoever was going to watch. I mean, it was literally like tonight James Earl Jones reads the phone book. It's like it's still scary just the way they craft the spot.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, like I for example, I remember seeing a commercial at one point for a movie called Patrick. It's an Australian movie, and it's sort of in the wake of Carrie, where there were more telekinesis based stories. And there Patrick was, he doesn't blink, he's in a coma, his eyes are open, and there's telekinetic insanity all around him. And I never saw that movie, and I always thought about that movie. And I remember seeing the newspaper listings for it as well. But I was too young and too afraid when those things were being advertised, pretty much above my head, but I was still right in the way. It's like you try and avoid the, the wave, but you get pummeled by it anyway.
Yes.
That's what we were with kids, because this stuff was aimed at our like teenage older siblings, but, we were right there for it. And so if we were in the schoolyard, we would talk about this stuff, and you'd have to seek out the one person whose older brother or older sister took you to see it, or they saw it and they would report back. And sometimes the stories about these movies were way more epic and embellished than the movies themselves. But for me, like in doing my awesome homework, I remember I came across Patrick and I was just like, holy crap, this is an outlier. I've known about this movie. I've thought about this movie. This has lived rent-free in a corner of my brain for decades.
Yeah.
However, I've never seen Patrick. Tonight is the night I'm going to remedy that. And it's been real fun. It's been real fun because there are more titles out there than I recall. That's the thing, is like this top third, this mythical top 30 that that we're talking about. I've seen everything on that top 30 more than once, if not many, many multiple times, more than I can count. And here's all these other movies that I know about that I now have to get to just to justify, is this something we should cover, and it's been incredibly fun. I'm at the beginning of this process because we're just starting production now, but I'm looking at a lot of these things and I'm just like, oh, that's definitely on the list. And I also I'm already worried. I'm already up at night because I feel like we won't have enough time to cover it all. Might have to go again.
Well, I don't think any of us would be against that, because the work that you've done with the 80s and the 90s have been fantastic. And I mean, I've said it to you before, watching those movies is the fastest 5 hours I've ever sat through. I mean, it's just like you start it, you get into it, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, we're done. You're like, wow, that went by really fast. It really, I mean, you craft it together so well. But I know.
Shout out, quick shout out. Sorry, I want to shout out an opportunity to single out my editor and my editors. Samuel Way did the first 3 In Search of Darknesses and In Search of Tomorrow, he's just finished The Thing Expanded and Aliens Expanded, working with Ian Nathan as the director. And Alex Townley has been doing the two 90s, Part 1 and Part 2, and he's back. I'm so happy that he's back to do In Search of Darkness 70s with me, and we're already having fun.
That's great. Well, yeah, they've done amazing work with it. They really have. And your graphics team has done an amazing job. I mean, it's...
Paul Conchake, I'm going to throw that one out as well. And Chris Stratton does a lot of the promo stuff.
Yeah.
Sorry, I threw off your next question.
Oh, no, that's okay. No, everybody... I'm a big fan of everybody that works there, because everybody that works at Creator VC is just... You see the product. You see the quality in the product when you put it in. Well, if it's a disc or if you're watching it digitally. Here I'm still thinking like it's VHS days. But no, I mean, everything is just, and they have their own little nuances without straying from the pack. So you could see all of them living in that same universe, but each one has its own little identity that separates it, which is how it should be. And I can't wait to see how this film opens up. And I'm always it's always for me the first movie that rolls out that I'm always kind of trying to figure out and guess, because it may be the most obvious one or not really. And it's a lot of fun trying to guess what's going to be the leadoff hitter of the documentary. But one of the things that you do so well too in these films is that you set up the eras themselves in the 80s and the 80s. I mean, you did so much in those three films, setting up the different events and things that were going on at the time. The 70s is a very different time period, and for those that are really young that don't know, I mean, the 70s was a pretty dark time in our recent history, let's say. You're coming off the 1960s, where you had the civil rights clashes, you had the assassinations of JFK, MLK, RFK, Malcolm X. In the 70s, you have the Vietnam War going on. You have in the news today, Iran. You had the hostage situation in Iran. You had the failed rescue attempt that unfortunately killed 6 Marines, which I still remember like it was yesterday. The gas shortage. And then you had one American president who was involved in Watergate, and then you had another American president who was a great humanitarian, but that great humanitarian was a little too blunt with the public on how bad things were at the country. So, I mean, where do you begin when you start looking at that time period?
Out of all the things that you mentioned, here's the thing: horror will reflect that either very obviously or metaphorically. But of all those things you mentioned, Jimmy Carter, ended up being one of the most benevolent presidents to continue working way after he left office. And back in the day, I remember I was there. He was like many people just said, oh, he's just a peanut farmer and he's got a drunk brother and, what the heck, this guy is, let's get him out of office. He's not doing anything for us. But, I think people didn't have a great appreciation of what, I'm not going to, be a rah-rah for in politics and all that kind of stuff like that. But coming off of Nixon and Watergate, I don't think people realized how good they had it. But it was an era, and in the pop culture arena, the bicentennial was happening. I remember that was a huge deal. Listen, my parents, who were not, jingoistic rah-rah parents, they wallpapered our kitchen in red, white, and blue wallpaper because of the spirit of the bicentennial.
Yeah.
I'm not kidding.
That is awesome.
That's
wow.
a real thing.
Wow.
And I was 8 years old. So I was like, okay, I didn't mean anything. I put stars and stripes, for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I didn't realize what that meant really. But, everything from disco and punk to fashions to sort of the end of the hippie era, especially with the Manson murders, really kind of derailing flower power and the what was the place now? The Rolling Stones played it in up in
California. It was
Altamont, and that ultimately kind of threw off the flower power, hippies, peace, love, granola element of all that stuff was really kind of thrown by Altamont and the Manson murders and, you know, dirty hippies and so on and so forth. And it was just a big kind of change that even with New Hollywood was reflecting in movies like Network, you know, All the President's Men, Taxi Driver, you know, The Deer Hunter, you know, this sort of post-Vietnam era where people were trying to look inward and trying to psychology and self-improvement and you know, the astrology, anything to get us out of our funk, you know, and Evel Knievel. I mean, this is a great era, you know, so much going on. That's the thing, is I could be a fountain of bullet points that really define this decade, and you would only be still scratching the surface.
It's so true. It's so interesting, because I was just thinking about
War
this.
of the Sexes.
That's right. Yes, exactly.
Billie Jean King.
Oh
gosh,
Bobby Riggs.
Bobby Riggs.
Yeah.
You know, I'll play you with one hand tied behind my back. You know, and she whipped his ass, and that was awesome.
Yeah. I mean, it's amazing. It's like, I was thinking about, like, when you were going into, like, I think about, like, Hammer horror as it's going away, as we get into this, as we go into the 70s, it starts to kind of disappear. We start to lose Dracula in favor of Yorga and Blackula, but at the end of the day, we come full circle back because we have Dracula and Nosferatu in 79.
Yes.
That he's like, they're like, we're still here, and it's like, you know, you can always go home, which is always very interesting with that.
Yeah, it's interesting though. Yeah, you know, I mean, a decade is a long time. It might seem a short period of time in retrospect, but 10 years is a lot of time for things to evolve, change, and sometimes snap back like a rubber band.
Yeah.
You see that in actually every single decade, you know. Even in the 80s, you know, you're going to have people like Tom Holland saying, where are my classic monsters? I want a werewolf. I want a vampire, you know. Same thing of the 90s, you know, you've got Francis Ford Coppola. It's just like, let's go to like Bram Stoker's Dracula, you know, Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, which he produced.
Yeah.
You know, let's bring those back, you know, these classic vampires and the romance and the longing of our lady love from generations past reincarnated. You know, these are stories that are really timeless, and even today, you know, I mean, you know, 5 minutes ago, Guillermo del Toro remade an amazing version of Frankenstein. You know, and so these things are always coming back. Where, however many times people try and evolve stories and characters and situations, you'll have other ones who pine for the classics and try and tackle them in a different way, or in a more loyal way to the source material. But ultimately, boy, you know, you look at the 70s, and that was packed with vampires, packed with zombies, you know, packed with echo horror in reflection to people realizing, you know, you see Iron Eyes Cody, you know, standing on the side of the freeway where people throw trash at his feet, and you have that single tear and that really epic. It turns out Iron Eyes Cody wasn't even Native American, but we only found out that later. But ultimately, you know, echo horror. So you got Food of the Gods, you've got Grizzly, you know, Jaws kicks off a whole thing of shark movies and piranha movies and tentacles, and you know, you got giant ants and giant Kingdom of the Spiders and Frogs and Squirm and The Swarm. There were multiple attacking bee movies, literally and figuratively, and so there's a whole era there, you know. And don't forget Prophecy, you know, our favorite mutant bear from pollution. That's a whole other thing where people were trying to, you know, Day of the Animals, you know, our ozone layer is depleting, and all the animals want to kill us for it. You know, they're all going insane, and so are we. Yeah. You know, these are amazing movies that talk about reflections of the times. You know, you get to have a creature feature, but also make a statement about man versus nature, and man will lose each and every time. Yes.
And I was thinking, too, about like a lot of Dan Curtis's stuff that were TV-based, too. You had Trilogy of Terror, obviously Kolchak, or The Night Stalker, and The Night Strangler, which, well, for those that don't know, was a huge influence on Chris Carter when he created X-Files. And I'm actually finishing up the Night Stalker series right now. I got a couple more left, and man, it's
very good. Well, when you finally finish, you need to reward yourself with a light lamp, and you put it in your window.
done.
Get it? Christmas Story, Dad.
But yes.
Story.
Wah, wah.
Oh, sorry, okay, Night Stalker. All right, that was bad.
And Bob Clark.
But
hey,
some
Bob
people
Clark.
thought that was amusing.
No, and I did find that amusing. And Bob Clark, there you go. You got Black Christmas and Christmas Story, and there you go.
And Porky's.
So let me ask you, as far as the projected release date of In Search of Darkness 70s, when roughly do you think it may be available for the public?
It's going to be about a year from now.
Okay.
What we do is when we release In Search of Darkness, it's usually the final push is around Halloween. Where Slasher Trash is coming out this fall.
Oh, wow.
And so based on the fact that we're starting sort of 70s now, coming off the heels of the two 90s movies, it's a bit of a reset in terms of our pattern. So people have to sort of reset their brains in terms of when stuff comes out.
Yep.
But it takes about a year to turn these things around, and so we're just starting production now. So ideally, the film will be done at the tail end of next spring, and everyone will have it in their hands, by maybe June.
Perfect. Just in time for great summer watching.
There's a question mark there.
That's okay.
Maybe June, but the thing is, that's the plan. And I do want to mention, I might be jumping the gun here, but since we're talking about June 4th is when our pre-order starts.
Yes.
For In Search of Darkness 70s, where you can pre-order, you get your name in the credits. We're doing a different thing this year where we're going to change it up because this is such a cinematic era. We're going to sort of upgrade, not sort of, we are planning to upgrade the package that you get. Okay. Where we're going to have an 80-page companion book that will come with the Blu-ray in this very cool, really nice slip case. The other bells and whistles that you guys are so used to, whether it's the T-shirts and the cool poster art, Dave Morrell poster art, and Clayton Benj doing his amazing art as well. We have two amazing artists who do posters each and every time. Those options will also be available, digital options. We're playing with a variety of different things, especially if you filled out the survey that we had a couple weeks ago, sort of shaping what you guys want. You guys overwhelmingly, when I say you, the backers and the audience that took the survey, overwhelmingly people are ready for a very cool, very quality upgrade. And so what we're going to do is we're going to have a very select new package for In Search of Darkness 70s that's really going to reflect the coolness and the cinematic. The filmophiles will be super psyched to have that on their shelves.
Awesome. And then as far as a website, is there a website for the pre-order that people can go to?
InSearchOfDarkness.com will take you to In Search of Darkness 70s. So InSearchOfDarkness.com.
Fantastic.
Thanks for asking.
And then as far as the pre-order length, it starts June 4th and goes through.
It's going to go through the end of the month. Okay. So there will be a countdown clock and all that kind of stuff. And we'll be doing plenty on our socials. We're going to do plenty of, advertising to show you what we're all about. An amazing trailer. I'm so excited for everyone. By the time people are listening to this, I'm sure we'll have the trailer and the posters out. But it's really fun sort of delving back into the 70s and trying to capture that aesthetic as well as the appreciation of film fans and cinema. I keep on saying cinema. It's like I'm like Martin Scorsese, pure cinema.
Pure cinema.
Just picture me. Picture Leatherface. Pure cinema.
Exactly. Well, I know, like everyone else, we can't wait to see it, but we have to be patient. We have to wait. We have a year at least to go, and that's fine because it's always worth the wait. For those that have not seen any or purchased any of the other previous documentaries that you've done, or as you've mentioned, Aliens Expanded and The Thing Expanded, which, by the way, I've heard has been getting amazing reviews on that as well. They can go
It's absolutely amazing.
Great. And they can go to insearchofdarkness.com as well, and they should be able to find information on those films there as well, correct?
Yeah. Well, if you go to our socials, but yeah, I think usually as we do, there are upgrade packages where you can get copies of other stuff that we've done.
Great.
So what you could do is when you pre-order In Search of Darkness 70s, you could also add on. It's all about the physical copies, right?
Yes.
And so we only do these in batches, and that's the time to jump on it and add on as you wish, or what's missing in your collection.
Fantastic. David, we wish you luck with this film. We can't wait to hear about the progress being made on the movie, and we will be patiently waiting. In Search of Darkness 70s. And who knows, maybe we'll talk to you before the year is out about that or something else. Who knows? But I'm sure I'll be talking to you.
Who knows?
Exactly, before Halloween. But in the meantime, we wish you well. Thanks for coming on the program, as always. It's always great talking to you. Love catching up, and thanks again for spending some time here.
It's always a pleasure. I really enjoy it. Now I just have to get out of this Amityville house. I think there's a passage through that red room, so I'm going to go in there and see what happens.
And as I put this interview to rest, it's always great having David on the program. If you are new to this podcast and you have not heard the other interviews that we've done, and there have been a lot because, well, he's been on promoting all of his other films, you can certainly find them right here, either on this podcasting app, or if you're listening to this on YouTube, you can check it out there. I have an entire wing for In Search of Darkness. And also a reminder again, the pre-order for In Search of Darkness 70s goes from June 4th to the end of the month, which would be June 30th. So you can check that out. If you are not familiar with these movies, I highly recommend you finding them. I know they used to be on Shudder, or at least the first In Search of Darkness was, and but you can go online, and I'm sure you can find them at a streaming service somewhere. And if not, well, maybe when they're on sale and you want to try one of them just to kind of get an idea, you could do that, or you could just buy it right now and take a look, and there you go. And as I begin to close down the graveyard, if you're a subscriber to the program and you've kind of been wondering, like, where's the show been? Or maybe not. You might not be. You might have just forgotten that it existed, kind of like how I did. No, I was devoting a lot of time to the YouTube channel and doing a lot of video productions on there, and that was sort of my thing for a couple of years, and I was really kind of pushing to do video content. To be honest, it's kind of gotten old because the YouTube algorithm is incredibly frustrating. I know that's not the first time you've heard that from anybody, but just to kind of give you an idea, I did a show called Catacombs of Horror, and it was a video production, and I would do them on movies that I watched. I did my favorite scenes from Count Yorga, Vampire, which was very popular, as well as The Return of Count Yorga, and I did one on Halloween. Anyway, I did one about a year and a half ago on Blackula, and I uploaded it to YouTube, and it just kept getting rejected and rejected and rejected. And it was when they went through this whole new algorithm. And basically what they wanted me to edit out, I would literally have a 1 and 45 second video production that you could watch out of 45 minutes. So it was just getting ridiculous, and it was getting frustrating. And while I was doing the YouTube shorts for a while, and it was fun, and they were getting a lot of hits, it's just not satisfying. So I've opted to go back and sort of focus again on the podcast. So I'm going back to more of an audio production format, and it's twofold. One, it's just a whole lot easier. I get to record a bunch of audio, put it together, upload it, and there you go. Video productions take a lot of time, and it's just a lot of effort. And for doing this for free, because it's just fun and it's a hobby, I can't spend hours and hours and hours of just wasting time trying to, get around the YouTube algorithm or satisfy that algorithm. It's just annoying. So if you've been a subscriber to the show, or if you're a new subscriber to the show, just stick with me. because it's not daily, it's not weekly, heck, it's not even monthly or bi-monthly. I mean, you may get an episode now, and then 3 months from now, I may do something. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to change how I'm doing the program. Normally, and traditionally, I should say, even back as far back as 2009 and 10, it was strictly an interview-only program. Well, now I'm going to start changing it up. I'm going to have interviews, maybe one podcast, and as I've done in the last year or so, I've just kind of uploaded me giving my thoughts on a movie that I may have just seen or something that just came to mind, and I've done a short podcast for it. So that's kind of the new way I'm going to be conducting business here in the Graveyard. This podcast, David Weiner's on here, and next podcast might be me talking about a movie or something that came to mind. So it's going to be a little different. It's not going to be just strictly interview only. But like I said, if you subscribe to the show, just stick with me, because I'm not going to bombard you with a bunch of shows. Too many shows do that already, and I understand why. This is one of those shows you just kind of come back to every so often. And there's a lot here already for you to listen to. If you're new to the program, you have so many other podcasts to listen to, interviews, especially with people from the world of horror over many, many years. So I welcome you if you're new, and I thank you if you've stuck with me here in the Graveyard. All right, that's going to do it for me. And as you exit the Graveyard, I would like to remind you to please lock the gate behind you. We wouldn't want anyone to get out. Until next time.